So we'll start with what is energy healing, and then do the moments of silence, and then prayer, I know what the title of the webinar is now, so that's good. And it will dive into a little bit of a review from yesterday, and then a little bit more nuanced information today, with as much as possible focusing on the healing work that we're doing for everybody. Energy healing is founded on the principle that essentially everything is made of consciousness. Some energy healers say everything is made of energy, but as I mentioned yesterday, there's no standard in the industry. And so the lexicon for energy healing hasn't been established very concisely. I use the word consciousness because I feel it's more precise, or it's more specific than energy, because energy can mean a lot of different things. But everything is made of consciousness. The body is also made of consciousness. It seems physical material, so it seems like maybe it's not made of consciousness, but it is made of consciousness, just concentrated. And consciousness in its manifest form, infinite, unbounded source of creation, right, creates by folding in on its own nature. This is even a little review from yesterday. It folds in on its own nature. And when it folds in, it starts to create layers of its own material, its own structure. And the physical body is just when it's really, really, really folded a lot. And so you've got form that's really like this little piece of fluff on my shoulder. And you've got form that's really like so folded over that it actually, it becomes material. We're going to talk more about that today in more detail. So if that seemed a little bit like not precise enough or not enough detail for you, don't worry. Anyway, it's about it. Energy healing is founded on that principle, and that the outer form is a byproduct of the inner movements and fluctuations of consciousness, and that we are in control of those inner movements and fluctuations of consciousness. So when things go awry at the surface, the solution is to bring awareness into the deeper levels of consciousness where the scaffolding exists, and to work with this more pliable level of consciousness where it's not folded quite as many times, right? So it's a little bit simpler, and one can work with it at the more fundamental level, and the net result is that the expression at the surface changes. The expression at the surface takes on a new form. And of course, we know the material world is constantly changing and reshaping itself and reforming itself, because the inner level of consciousness is ever flowing and unfolding in greater, more elaborated waves of truth. So part of the deal is to clue into that truth, to kind of get used to it, and to learn to recognize what's true and what's not true. And I encourage you guys, I encourage you to ask questions, and some good questions came in today, kind of harder, like more nuanced questions, which I really appreciate. And so we'll get into that too. But anyway, that's the premise of energy healing, is that it's easy for us. It's easy for our awareness, which is super highly flexible, to move into the subtler levels of the field of creation, and to work with these more pliable, more malleable levels of consciousness, which you could say are also awareness, right? We use our awareness as the vehicle, but awareness is the material as well, right? Because consciousness is awareness. It's knowingness. It's pure awareness, pure perception, pure being, pure presence. Anyway, we have lots of words we can use to describe it, but we'll break some of that down today so that we can look at it in a little more detail and see which facets we want to approach in order to produce different effects. Anyway, I think that's the main thing, is that it's well within your reach. It's well within your reach. It's well within your range to be able to do this for yourself. And that's the most powerful and effective way to accomplish energy healing anyway. And I'm really glad that you're with me for this ride, because it's a lot of fun as well. And it's really fun for me. So thank you. I'm going to now we'll take a few minutes of silence. And we do that because closing the eyes and quieting the mind. Mind quiets down when we close the eyes kind of spontaneously. And when we do that, we get a chance to kind of directly experience and kind of look at what that field of awareness, kind of check out the landscape a little bit. Check out the landscape. I've got this big fancy landscape today. So we check out the landscape a little bit. And that's a great preparation for the webinar, right? Because each one of us is having our own unique experience of it. So, anyway, I invite you to join me for the 3 minutes of silence if you feel up for it. And I will keep an eye on the time so you don't have to worry about that. And we'll just dive into that quiet inner space a little bit and just enjoy the landscape a bit. And then after 3 minutes, I'll ask you to open the eyes. Please take your time coming out because we bring more of the nuance of it. We bring more of the detail of it with us. If we come out a little slowly, if we just pop the eyes open and come blasting out, then we can lose some of the juicy details. So we don't want to lose those. Those are good. All right, I'm going to ask everyone to close the eyes then. Let's close our eyes. All right, everyone. Quietly taking a few moments before opening the eyes. Thank you to the source of creation for being everything, for being all of us, and for being the universe. Thank you for being the eternal tradition of wisdom. That is the bridge, revealing the mechanics by which the unmanifest infinite ocean of pure consciousness rises up as the universal field of expression. Thank you for that connection, that wisdom, that knowledge. Thank you for this webinar, this time that we have together. May every moment be golden. May every moment be useful and valuable and precious to each one of you, serving the highest needs and desires for your health, your highest health and evolution. And thank you, everyone, for asking me, for allowing me to be with you, and for the opportunity. I appreciate being here with all of you and the opportunity to share this information, which I find very exciting and interesting and empowering. And it's just such a pleasure to get to share it and spread it around to all of you. So thank you so much. All right. So the title is Activating the Power of the Subtle Bodies. And certainly, as awareness gets closer and closer to the source of creation, it comes closer and closer to the source of all power and all resource. And obviously, and this is the review from yesterday, obviously, that means that bringing awareness to the very source of creation itself would be bringing it to the ultimate resource of power. So of all the subtle bodies, and I think this was a kind of a point from yesterday's, there's a lot more flash and like kind of interesting experiences that can be had working with the subtle layers. And I'm going like this because actually I'm sort of referencing my chart. If we imagine that at the surface, even of this gorgeous background, it's somewhere in Austria, did you say? Anyway, this beautiful poster. This is a huge, the body is up here at the point, right? And then we can think of these as the subtler, more abstract layers of the field of consciousness. And then at the bottom of the picture, we find our way into the source of creation. It's a beautiful picture. And I'm grateful that it was introduced to me by Maharishi years ago, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, my teacher, for whom I am so infinitely grateful for all of the foundation of Vedic science. And I bring you that. That's part of what I bring, is the foundation of Vedic science that's behind this very, very ancient perspective on reality that still holds true to this day, and interfaces, I feel interfaces and interlaces very nicely with a lot of the discoveries of both modern science and also modern religion, and all the other ways, all the other filters through which we look at reality. When we're looking at something that's true, it fits, right? It coordinates up with other things that we also know to be true. So anyway, I just present that idea because I think it's nice to know. Anyway, he presented this chart or this diagram that had the source of creation at the bottom and had the layers of manifestation going up to the physical material at the top. And it was a beautiful concept, and it worked for me. So I'm continuing to use it, and so grateful to be able to give credit where credit is due. Anyway, moving on, going to the source of creation. So awareness can move all the way through. And maybe already we just share the chart, because the chart's here. I love this new chart. It's so beautiful. As I mentioned earlier, before we started the presentation, my friend Eric made this lovely chart. I'm in the chart too. Anyway, yeah, he made this beautiful chart for me. And it shows the source of creation at the bottom of the chart, and it shows the physical body at the top of the chart, and it shows the layers in between. And one of the things that's new in this chart is there are functions between the layers. We can think of the layers as the forms: physical form, etheric form, mental form, emotional form, astral form, causal form, and of course, source of creation that is everything. But if we move in, we can see, for instance, it's a vector chart. Don't you love it? So with that, whoops, oh, I don't want to move that. No, I just want to go like that. We can see that there are functions. There are functions in the gap. There's this dynamic thing happening here. Let's see if this works. Yes. Yes, we see there's this dynamic thing happening here. Guys, I'm still getting used to the technology, just bearing with me. Thank you. Thank you. And that this is where the folding of consciousness occurs. Consciousness folds in on its own nature down here. We see there's the collapsing or the diving into the gap. That's the folding in. And then there's the silence within the gap. And then the dynamism within the silence, which prepares for the outflow. And then there's the reemergence from the gap. And this folding in and folding out process gives rise to the very first form. So this is a function. This is a function. Form follows function is a universal principle in art and engineering and various other areas of science. Form follows function. So there's this function that consciousness doesn't create with something outside of itself. It creates from within itself. And within itself, it is folding, and the folding gives rise to subtle form. And the first subtle forms that we get, I love how he represented this. The first subtle forms that we get is this cute little wave right here, this nice little wavy line, which represents the three gunas. The three gunas, which is knower, knowing, and knowingness, all functioning as one form. See there, it says the three gunas. Getting used to it, guys. This way, there we go. Three gunas. Okay, so they're the three gunas, and they're kind of in the gap here. And it's the dive in and out, in and out, in and out that represents either the three gunas appearing as three or appearing as one. 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 1 and 3. It's like a little oscillation that occurs way down at the gap. Okay. Anyway, this folding and this oscillation of 1 and 3 gives rise, the three gunas, they start to layer up on each other. The knower is looking at the known, and the known is looking at the process of knowing, and they start to see each other in terms of their own nature, and that starts to create layers and waves. So that function of folding, which is still continuing on, only in a more elaborated form, gives rise to a more elaborated, in a more elaborated folding gives rise to a more elaborated form. And the more elaborated forms are the fundamentals of divinity. Let's see if I can make this work. And yes, the fundamentals of divinity right there, which are simple expressions of the grace and the goodness of the divine. Grace, goodness, compassion, love, mercy, forgiveness, empathy, lots of different beautiful forms that also interact with each other, and their interaction is a function that gives rise to, can she do it? Yes, to impulses of universal intelligence. Impulses of universal intelligence, also known as the riches in Vedic science, are these concentrated or complex structures of intelligence, the truth. They're packages of truth that are the foundation for the laws of nature. And the laws of nature are not in my chart, unfortunately, but they will be at some point. And the laws of nature are basically functional, and they function all the way through and through the whole, they function through this whole system here. But in the gaps, so in this gap, there's a lot of dynamism in this gap. There's a lot of movement in the gap. And in the gap between the presence, divine presence, we talked about quite a bit yesterday as the, is she doing it? There we go. I'm doing it. We talked about divine presence as the angels and the saints and the archetypes and the subtle soul, you could say, the soul of the universe, the soul of all things. Are found at this causal level of creation. Beautiful. And they're all expressions of ourself, because human consciousness ranges for the whole picture. The whole picture is human consciousness. Our consciousness, who we and what we are, is all of this, all of this, all of this. And this will bring me for partly to an answer for one of the questions that came in today. But in any event, I think that's kind of a bit of a review, I suppose. I asked my friend Eric to make this chart with these little sections on the in-between, which I didn't really get a chance to talk about very much yesterday. But there are functions that sit between the different forms of this body. You see the aura in here, and intuition. These are kind of functional forms that emotions are structures of feelings, but there's a level where they come in contact with the astral field, which is a field of awareness on the move. And in the in-between, they show up as lively energy functions or lively energy structures, colors and light and frequency, color and light and frequency. And in the midst between the astral, I could probably do a whole webinar on any one of these sections. So we might just do that. I think I'm just kind of giving you sort of an overarching introduction today. But yeah, when the mental body and the emotional body are working conjoined, they're working together, we get intuition, right? Because intuition is the marriage of the intellect and the heart. And the mental and etheric bodies come together through the movement or the form of intention, because that's where the ideas and the principles that are in sort of the realm of the mind actually start to make their way into the material expression of creation. And of course, between the physical and etheric, that's not what I want to do. Stop. Don't do that. Please don't do that. Okay. I'm still working on the technology here, guys. The electronic body, which is, we did a healing yesterday for the electronic body, so I hope you get a chance to check that out because it was very sweet. Anyway, this chart is a very nice chart, and there is a bit of a review from yesterday. The main fundamental principle was that no matter which level of these energy bodies we are working with, no matter which level we're at, is the most important thing that we do is we never lose sight of this, the source of creation. We never lose sight, because the connection to the source of creation is the foundation that keeps the work that we do in the subtle levels of the body in perspective. And it ensures that all the energy healing work that we do is good and life-supporting and appropriate and well aligned with what's going on evolutionarily, what's happening in the evolution of the whole field around us and everybody else around. It takes into staying connected to the source of creation, takes all those details into consideration that would be difficult for our minds to take into consideration our own. We all have our own personal goals and our aims and our intentions, but with energy healing, success is based on the healing that we're doing in the moment being so perfectly aligned with the evolution that's going on all around us that it's like the whole universe comes together to support that intention, right? That's why sometimes people ask for things that are good, that they should have and that they need and that it seems right, but for some reason it doesn't work out, right? Or they have to go through more time, or they have to be patient, or the body is taking longer to come forth with the results that we're looking for, something like that. Whereas sometimes changes are miraculously immediate. What's the difference? The difference is the alignment with wholeness. The difference is the connection to the source. So that's going to bring me to one of the questions that came in today. And as you know, guys, I like to do questions more throughout the Saturday session because, well, this particular webinar didn't elicit a lot of questions, But nonetheless, there's a lot of, one lady sent in several really solid questions. So let's look at them. Is the permanent relationship that I mentioned yesterday between ourselves and the divine, the source of creation, totality, and that's not just the source, but it's like the whole source plus the whole chart, the whole chart. So our relationship with that vision of wholeness, is it established through prayer, meditation, or other practices over time? Or are you talking about at the start of an energy healing session, making that connection in the moment, or both? So the answer is yes, both, because of all the relationships that we have in this experience of life, our experience of life, we have many relationships, but of all of them, our relationship to that, our relationship to divinity, you could say, we could call it God, we can call the totality of wholeness or totality, however we want to look at that, that relationship is more nuanced, more complex, more vast, longer reaching, because it reaches from the very beginnings of time to the very end of time, right? Like some relationships are short terms. This is like a long-term relationship. So, it sort of embraces or encompasses everything that we are, every particle and part of us. So every way that there is for us to show up as a human being is a way that we can support and enhance that relationship. That relationship's so big and it's so all-encompassing and it's so ever-present and it's just so like baked into every particle of self. We can support and enhance it through prayer and meditation. We can also support and enhance it through the little blessing at the beginning of our session. And we can support and enhance it through all of the energy healing practices, all of your ways that you like to connect to nature. You like to go out and walk in nature, or the arts, or the sciences, or you name it. Just you name it. What it really kind of comes down to is that every moment of life and every experience that evolves through us becomes the instrument of enhancing and supporting greater depth and intimacy of that connection and that relationship. And even our relationships with people and things. And yesterday I talked about how there are relationships with people, but there's relationships with knowledge, and we have relationships with the evolutionary process, and these are more abstract relationships, right? Then, like, I have a relationship with this little sign right here telling me the name of today's session, and that's an important relationship, but it's not going to last forever because, yeah. But my relationship with the evolutionary process, or my relationship with the divine, that's a relationship that's ongoing in a much more both abstract and concrete. So it's all the way from the bottom of the chart all the way to the top of the chart. And there's so much in it. It's like it's like you never run out of material. But it's also essential, right? Because the better we know that relationship, the better all the other relationships fall into place. Okay, and what or who is connecting to the source? That's such a good question. One's heart, one's consciousness, the small self or the big self, or is it the oneness kind of connection, or the personal relationship with God kind of connection? So the answer is that it's such a nuanced thing, this relationship with the one. I'll call it the one for now. That it includes all of those. Small self connects in a certain way, and big self connects in a different way. And remember the chart, all the different layers that we can sort of define different laws of nature dominating at different levels of consciousness. And at each of those different levels where the laws of nature, favor certain types of expression or so, the relationship will look a little different. It's so big. It's like what is it? The five blind men and the elephant or something, every time you connect to wholeness from the surface of creation, you get one kind of an experience. And if you drive awareness down into the silent ocean of pure being, that's a different kind of connection that has a different feel to it. And it comes through a different aspect of the filter of our own humanity. And ultimately, because we're using our human filter, our human nervous system and aware field of awareness or consciousness to connect to the one, we're getting to know ourselves too, because the one is so pure. It's so complete and whole that whichever part of ourself, like say I decide to connect through my heart to the one, when I do that, then I get to know my own heart better, right? Because a relationship is two-way. And so there's a kind of reaching out to the divine, but there's the reflection back. And the reflection back is so big, it comes from such a big place that it shows me something of my heart that I didn't know before. And so it's very much, we could almost say right here that this very subtle action of reaching out to the divine and reflecting back is the essence of energy healing. And that each time that loop is made, that we reach out and then the reflection comes back from a level of such bigness and wholeness and totality that we understand ourselves better, that what we're really doing is we're healing the parts of ourself that were responsible for falling ill in the first place, because those are the parts that felt separate from the divine and not big enough and not good enough and incomplete. And when that little loop is made, completion occurs. A greater, like an expansion of wisdom and understanding of who and what we are happens. So it's sort of simple and elegant, right? But it's also like very abstract. So it's good that it's both because it gives us something to play with, right? It gives us something to explore and to enjoy. And as we're going along with the energy healing, you'll find that every step of the process has so much in it. It just has so much. It elicits an expansion of bliss and fullness in the being. And it's a nice thing. It's a really nice thing. So what is connecting to source? I would say the most fundamental aspect of ourself would be awareness. Awareness is that aspect that sort of reaches forth, but it reaches forth when it reaches forth. We went through the chakras yesterday. When it reaches forth from here, it reaches forth as awareness. When it reaches forth from here, it reaches forth as all of the resources for connecting, right? For expressing and connecting to the environment. That's a good place. That's a different part of the filter, right? When it reaches forth from here, it reaches forth with love, all the fullness of the heart, and so forth. You can see yesterday's session for more detail on that. Is intention to connect sufficient? Yes. Or is there clear experience of connecting that lets one know that the relationship is established? Also, yes. Remember, we're working with something so big, right? That we can, that the intention to connect is like the first part. It's like the first step of the process. But in all these traditions, and I have to thank some of my family members who've been stretching themselves into areas of spiritual exploration that are, for me and my husband, a little bit new. And it's so rewarding to stretch into areas that we've never gone before and find validation for what we already knew and what the experience that was already there. It's really nice. And so the validation that comes through, whether you're looking through Western religion or Eastern religions, is that the intention to connect is there, but the intention leads the awareness, it leads the energy in the head to quiet down. That's why we take our 3 minutes at the beginning of these sessions, right? We quiet down up in the head area, the thoughts quiet down, the mind can come to a still point. And when that happens, the heart fills up, the heart becomes full. And the fullness of the heart is you could say, the impulses of intelligence that are expressed through this part of the filter. are pure in nature, and they are like the language, you could say, the language of universal knowledge and understanding, the language of the universe. And the interaction with wholeness is very clean and clear and pure through the heart. So those two steps, and those two steps are found pretty much universally. It doesn't matter what religion you're following. The mind becomes quiet and receptive, you know, and the heart fills with love. And then the exchanges of sweetness and knowledge and wisdom and the ability to perceive those impulses of intelligence as they're rising up from the source of creation. And as the heart enlivens, it also becomes more and more refined. That's like the next step. The heart becomes more and more refined. And the refinement allows the awareness of those impulses of intelligence to come more and more, to be picked up closer and closer to the source of creation until it's just that fold in the gap. Remember the gap, the little oscillation? It's just that folding in the gap is just pure knowingness folding in on itself, in on itself, in on itself. That can be reached. There are many, many techniques from all over the world, but of course we love the simplicity of the transcending meditations are so beautiful. The transcending meditation, TM, is a beautiful, beautiful, consistently effective, reliable, measurable. But there are many. I mean, the Western religions do the Jesus prayer, which is not about transcending in the mind, although some of the ways they practice it help the awareness see the layers of the mind, but it's all about activating and enlivening the heart. Is there a feeling or sensation that accompanies that connection? Yes. The feeling, there's an energetic field that's created by the mind when the mind completely settles down and is silent. Pure silence of the mind. It feels very nice. It feels whole. So just allowing that download to come in for everybody, that sense of it, just the sense of it. It's the quietness is very soft. And there's just like the heart can rise up in waves of love, and that's very, very blissful for the heart. The mind can settle down into the deepest silence of the source of creation, and it's very blissful for the mind. For those of you who are not sure, if you're experiencing it, don't worry, because you do experience it every day, every night. It's the silence. It's that lovely, floaty, quiet place that you experience between waking and sleeping. It's right there. The mind has to go into that place of deep silence in order to transition from waking to dreaming to sleeping. And in the night sleep, we go back and forth many, 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 many times. So one of the things that I'm offering in this moment is to support everyone's ability to have a little light of awareness, a little light of awareness. Oh, the transition. Oh, I'm going from dreaming to sleeping. There it is. Oh, that's what that feeling feels like. It's a wonderful feeling. Does it stay with one through the whole energy healing session, or does it move into the background? Honestly, our relationship and connection to the source of creation is always with us, but we're just not always aware of it. And the techniques are to kind of help. The techniques are there to help cultivate flexibility and stability in the nervous system so that the nervous system can appreciate the presence of that silent source of creation all the time. because it is really subtle. And this world, this material world, is just so full. Look, here's this cup. It's so pretty, right? It's like, I like them. It's a very beautiful cup. And it's like it can be distracting. It's shiny and it's got these little pretty swirly patterns on it. It can be the material world can be very distracting. And it kind of, the nature of the human mind is that it gets gripped by the sensational presentation of the material world. And that gripping can camouflage or cover up the subtlety and the profoundness, even though it's huge and vast and eternal and like beyond and above everything. And literally baked into every particle of creation. Even then, we still tend to miss it sometimes. So, flexibility and stability in the nervous system is the key. So, a lot of energy healing is for that. A lot of it, like one of the primary forms of the energy healing process, is to increase stability and adaptability in the nervous system so that that connection and sense of presence of the divine is never lost. Is the connection made in the ocean of being or in the gap? In the beginning, the connection is made in the ocean of being. Like the awareness has to go from the surface thinking busy level down to the silence. But after the nervous system has become more flexible and adaptable, then the connection is made at every point. At every point in creation, oh, there's the connection to wholeness again. Thank you for asking, and thank you for, allowing me to offer my perspective. I really, really appreciate it. And not to worry, because like I said, the relationship is ancient and eternal and goes on and on and on forever. And there's an endless amount of exploration that takes place. Endless. So like, I've been doing it long enough that I can describe it, but I'm no further ahead than anybody else. Really, 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 really. Like I'm still looking at it and going, oh wow, it's endless. All right. It's like, so it is, which makes it lovely, right? It makes it wonderful. It's like you never run out of material. So anyway. Oh yes. So someone asked if I could please, this is sending a big thank you to Eric for making the beautiful chart. And if we could do a webinar just on the chart, that would be amazing. Yes, we'll do that. We'll line that one up. Can you please lead a healing specifically aiming at the area of mirroring of the divine back to the self and folding back to the self from the big self? Be not so a rough transition. So it's not such a rough transition. Yes, let's do that. The roughness is a byproduct of the nervous system not being ready. So when the nervous system's really comfy with it, it feels smooth. So we'll take a minute and look at the nervous system. And here we're using our awareness, which is the material that the source of creation is made out of. And we're focusing it in on the nervous system. And when we look at the nervous system, our nervous systems are kind of like the shape of our whole bodies, right? And they go into like all the organs and everywhere. So when we look at the nervous system, we're looking at something that's like, it's like a reflection of the whole body, only just through the filter of feeling, and perception. And our nervous system has a special intelligence all its own. And that intelligence has a presence. That intelligence has a presence. So what we're doing with our awareness is we're looking at the nervous system on the surface of what it looks like physically. And then we're looking at the nervous system of what it looks like deeper in, more abstract. And at a more abstract level, the nervous system has a presence, a personality, you could say. This is a more abstract level of the nervous system. And that level of the nervous system can interact with our awareness the way we would interact with someone we love. So we say hello. We say hello to the deva. We call it the devata of the nervous system, the intelligence responsible for the growth and the healing and the evolution of the nervous system. It's like one part of ourselves saying hello to another. Hello. Oh, hello. Right? My hands can say hello to each other. My awareness can say hello to the intelligence of the nervous system. You can do it. You can do it. You can say hello to the intelligence of the nervous system. And notice as we focus awareness on the intelligence of the nervous system and recognize it, appreciate it, love it, that the nervous system becomes enlivened. Some of you might be feeling a little tingling going on in the body because just putting the attention wakes it up. The awareness that flows on the wings of attention, the awareness is pure source material. It is that infinite, unbounded, vast, eternal intelligence. So as it focuses in on the nervous system, both the gross or material level of the nervous system and the subtle level of the nervous system, it wakes up the nervous system. And one of the first things I'm seeing is a flow of, like, I would say robust energy, joy. And it feels like it's starting in the center of the body, in the spine, the nervous system, in the spine, and down like in the solar plexus area. There are meridians that are running through the body that carry the intelligence and awareness through the body, and these are clearing. And the solvent is a light medicine whose fundamental component is joy and compassion. Always compassion is there. Always, always. And when the compassion starts to flow, the energies come up into the heart area and start to awaken and activate all the sweetness that's in the heart center. So we have the nervous system getting a wash, the presence, the intelligence of the nervous system getting a kind of a light bath. And sweetness awakens in the heart. And that sweetness, that sort of gratitude and love and sweetness, compassion is provided a pathway to the source of creation. That folds back into the source of creation. Folds back into the source of creation because the silent foundation from which all of this creation comes and through which our relationship with the divine exists, that silent foundation is like the great distribution center. The love goes into that and it just multiplies out to infinity. It multiplies to infinity and is felt and directly experienced by the one of which we are part. The light that comes back from the one reveals the intimacy of our connection, that we're really one and the same. We're all part of the same structure. This is the richa. This is the impulse of truth that's rising up in the heart. Our little hearts felt all that sweetness and offered it back to the source of creation. And what comes back is this package of truth. It's like a download. It's a package of truth. The intimacy of our union with that great one. And it's so, the intimacy of the union is so beautiful that as individuals, the nervous system, what the nervous system does is it's like, well, I just would like to soak in that. I would just like to soak in that feeling of union and wholeness. because, first of all, it's pleasant and comfortable. And the soaking provides a platform for little micro changes in the nervous system, micro changes. The silence is just so soothing and beautiful when the heart is offering that love and gratitude back again, again, again. And it keeps coming back in packages or impulses of the truth of union, the truth of union. And the truth of union with all the gratitude and compassion and love is offered back. Those packages of information coming from the source of creation are then folded. They fold back into the source of creation again. And what I see happening with this fold is an environmental shift. And the astral body is changing shape in a good way. The astral field is changing shape. The divine loves us, reaching out and encouraging or supporting greater intimacy in our relationship, and replies and responds by shifting the field in a way that provides greater access of resources to the intelligence of the nervous system. Nice. I mean, I'm just calling it as it's unfolding, you guys. I wasn't planning anything here. This isn't planned on the level of individuality. It's just what's happening. The resources provided to the nervous system include something. I'll try to describe the body producing a material. Looks like the body's like a formula, like a recipe for the body that is both energetic, but is also physical. It's physical and energetic. It's information about the quality of soma that we produce. And those of you who are familiar with that word, I'll come back to that in a minute for those who aren't. But soma is produced as the finest byproduct of digestion, and it feeds the intelligence of the body, including the devata or intelligence of the nervous system. But in this case, you guys, the formula is for a quality of soma that's golden and a little bit opaque. And it's like a light medicine, but it also translates into material value as well. Receiving a download of a recipe, we could say, for creating a quality of soma that's very looks kind of unctuous and like a little bit, softer and sweeter somehow, something that the nervous system really, really likes. And in the process of creating the soma, there's information received in the body, information received by the body, particularly by the mitochondria in the body, of producing this soma. It's like a very rich form of soma that the nervous system really likes. It's deeply, deeply nourishing to the nervous system. So the nervous system gets physically something. The soma is subtle, but the soma feeds the intelligence of the nervous system. And in doing so, it translates into a material structure that the body really likes, that the nervous system really, really likes. And one of the ways I'm seeing it showing up physically is increasing the thickness of the myelin sheaths around the nerve cells and around the dendrites, around the nerves. It's like, it is kind of thick like that. Like the myelin sheath is a little fatty, and it's like that soma, that quality of soma is like a little fatty sort of. It's like thick, nourishing, rich. And it's supporting the body's ability to redistribute some of the fat in the body to support the nervous system to go around to coat, make nice thick coatings around the nerves so that the information that flows through the nervous system flows more efficiently, faster, more directly. And there's bliss. There's bliss when the nervous system moves like that, you know? It's like I don't know, it's like a runner or somebody, you know, an athlete who's like learned to move their body in a certain way fast or something, you know, and then they can do it and just feels so good to do it. It's like that. There's bliss in it. This is it's sort of a formula. It's a formula. It's a gift for the nervous system to support to provide the resources for the nervous system and the conditions for the nervous system so that it can move more, it can be more stable and more adaptable. So we're just setting up the condition. We're setting up the condition. The outcome is in the hands of the divine. The actual outcome, like this is the condition. The energy healing is setting up the condition, but how it comes out, how your body decides to use it, and how all the different ways that you are able to exploit the value of this healing, that is the glory of the it's the glorious outcome of the enhancement of each person's relationship with the divine, because it falling into that place of unity, you know, where you feel unified with the divine. Well, as I mentioned earlier, it allows us to appreciate ourselves more. We see ourselves through the filter of unconditional, universal, eternal love. Like, wow, that's something to see oneself, right? So we see ourselves through that filter. We understand and appreciate ourselves more, and through that deeper appreciation, we're able to work with the resources provided by the energy healing process in an even more efficient manner, in an even more fruitful manner. And see how it aligns with the environment, because we're in the springtime right now. And so the whole world is waking up. And we have the field around us, both on a gross material level and on a very, very subtle, abstract level. The field around us is awakened with that same kind of blissful bursting forth energy of the springtime. Of course, some people will be seeing this video and getting the healing at a different time of year, which is fine too, you know, because everything happens according to divine plan, and you know, it all happens the way it's supposed to happen, essentially. So, and there are always factors that come in that are support in their own special way. Anyway, thanks for that awesome question. Thank you so much. Here's another question. This lady, this beautiful, amazing woman, is sending in a question that I feel when I read this question. This is a lady, I think of her as a warrior goddess. She's such a warrior queen, something like that. Warrior princess, that's it, in France. But this is like a core wound. It's a core issue. And her core issue, and some of the others of you may have a similar core issue here. And the problem that she's been working with for a while is that she can't seem to heal completely. So when she was really, really young, she was aware of how much magic and power was in her. She knew like how sparkling she was, you know, and filled with grace and filled with such, and the connection to the divine was like without question, right? It was just there. And so she was moving and breathing in the intimacy of this beautiful, beautiful relationship. And she thinks that the ability to manifest, that when that level of her power found its way to the surface, that it tended to create responses from people in her environment that weren't always positive. So sometimes people freaked out, or they got frightened, or they didn't like it or something. And so she got confused. She felt confused and guilty and began to shut down right? Does it sound familiar? I'm sure others of us have had the same experience at some point or another. So in order to prevent herself from hurting others, yeah, so she shut down. Years and years later, she's still struggling with that fear and those having kind of set those patterns into place in her own system of shutting down. Yeah, see, other people are raising their hands too. She's not exactly sure where. Oh, even more people raising hands. Beautiful. Yeah. So it is a common experience. Um, I think I'll stop right there and I'll do the second half of the question after we work with this part. So little children, speaking of myelinating the nervous system, little children have not myelinated their nervous systems yet. So their nervous systems do not function as efficiently as an adult nervous system. And a little kid, especially when a little kid is kind of wide awake and they're all in their fullness and their power and their glory and their sweetness and their beauty and all that, they know that their ability or capacity to make hardcore moral decisions isn't as efficient and it isn't as powerful as the adults around them. And so children always look to the adults around them to receive guidance of right and wrong, right versus wrong. And was this an okay thing to do, mommy, or should I have not had done it? And little children, that's what they do, right? They test boundaries. They look at their mom, they go, okay, I'm going to push on this and then see what you say. Are you going to say it's okay or are you going to say it's not okay? They're always testing the boundaries. A lot of boundary testing goes on. And this was like another boundary. And of course, the range and variety of evolution of the adults in our environment is pretty vast. So we have, different karmas too with different people. So part of the story is having given one's power away to the adults, but rightly so, because that's what children are supposed to do. But I would say at a deeper level than this, if we look down at the astral level of the physiology, and it's at least that deep, I would say even for you, it's even deeper. It goes down into the causal level where all the archetypes and forms of self reside. There have been memories, patterns, and impressions from the past of having had resources of various kinds and misuse them, right? And so it can happen that in a past life, you kind of gained access to some laws of nature, you had access to certain types of resources, and still feel a little bit ashamed or guilty of not having utilized those resources in the highest and best way, in the way that was best aligned with the intentions of the creator, right? Oh, all of a sudden I've got all this resource. What shall I do? Well, I'll just spend some of it, I'll just do something with it. So there, I would say the first part is the clearing of impressions and memory patterns that caused you to feel as if you weren't good enough because you didn't feel like you used the resources effectively or efficiently or in the best possible way. Of course, little kids don't trust themselves to do things the right way. That's not part of their job. Their job is to learn how to do that. The other side of it is thy resources, not my resources, right? That all the good, all the resources that we have and that we use and that come to us and that are available to us are really expressions of the one that are available at any given time. And so taking ownership of it at an individual level is part of the action that ultimately causes one to lose the resource. And it's not like you really fully lose the resource because it's still in you there a little bit, but it's that ownership at the surface of it that has this danger of placing one's individuality somehow at a higher level than the one, right? And the one is also one with us and part of us and as us. But that part of us has its own agenda that is tied into these huge, huge, huge cosmic cycles. And so it doesn't always line up with some, oh, I've got a resource. Oh, I'd like to spend it like this, right? So that's more at an individual level. And the whole thing happens as a gift to allow us to reunite with the divine, with that level of divine intelligence that provides those resources in the first place, and to be united in such a way that the resources absolutely are used in the way that they were intended to be used from the highest level of universal intelligence. That's the connection. That's the connection. And I see it happening down in the belly area. I see it down in the third chakra, second chakra, first chakra areas of the body. The connection made. And the feeling, the original feeling of the bliss and the power of it that sort of drove a little bit of a sense of being separate and even different, different from the people around, because you saw that other people didn't have that sparkle. The sparkle is the sparkle of the divine peeking through the material field of creation. And that is the gift, that is the hug, that is the embrace for the little self, for your little person. For all of us who had this experience when we were little, the embrace is all that sparkle is the divine sparkling through. It's peeking through the field of the relative into the field of our experience as us. But we see it, but we don't get confused. We don't think, oh, it's my small individual self. We realize that it's the gift of the individuality uniting with the one. It's the gift of the union. It's the gift of the union. And that is the gift of the healing, is it goes back to the little self and gives the gift of the union. Complete, beautiful, luscious, integrated connection between what we know ourselves to be as individuals and that big wholeness, that big one wholeness. It also feels as if this is an extension of a little bit of the healing that we did for the nervous system earlier, because I can feel the nervous system becoming more integrated as a result of this union. Oh, and wasn't union part of the last healing that we were just doing too? It was. So it's like now we're coming at it from a slightly different angle, which is how we do it, right? It's one of the ways that we integrate that fullness. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I see a lot. It feels as if a lot of discordant feelings are releasing from those meridians that I was talking about before, and also from the spine itself, from the nervous system itself, releasing discordant feelings, all those feelings of guilt and shame and not certain, and maybe I'm not good enough and insufficient and all that. And just when they're released, they gather up in the court of light and they swirl back to the core of Mother Earth, and they make their way back to the source of creation. And the source of creation says, oh, no, you're so beautiful. No, this is just a stress. These thought forms and these emotions were there as blockages to the sense of full connection with me. When I say me, I mean wholeness, with wholeness, my connection with wholeness. The connection filling all those spaces within the body, within the energy flow of the different chakras, within the meridians, and within the nervous system itself, the spine, the union, the light of union, the light of connectedness and intimacy. And it's so beautiful that it really can give rise to very sensations, physical sensations that are blissful and healing, blissful and healing. All the little spots in the nervous system where some little toxin had gotten stuck or some little nerve was a little bit, you know, crooked or something. All those little spots, they start to soften up. The toxins are identified and recognized and moved into the lymphatic system, and the little nerves, that any little nerve that's a little bit off of its comfort zone, it gets a chance to straighten back out and to reestablish connection with balance. The intelligence, the devata of the nervous system is literally going through the nervous system. The devata, the big devata that oversees the entire nervous system, of course, breaks down into smaller devatas. It comes down to each little cell has its own little intelligence that oversees it. And so working through the nervous system like that, cell by cell by cell, and supporting the highest and most robust structuring of the nervous system, cell by cell by cell. And to me, it looks like there's a freeing of energy in the heart center that comes from this, that comes from the nervous system feeling more balanced and stable. Then there's like a freeing, it's like a liberation in the heart center. So I would say if it was sitting anywhere, probably it was sitting in the heart. Like that was like the core repository of all those discordant feelings. Yeah, other people are noticing too. Thank you. And of course, as I mentioned before, the heart is the primary point of union between the individual and the divine. It's the primary point where we really have the shape of the nervous system here in this area is such that it best supports our ability to really comprehend that relationship in its most as completely as possible. Like it's sort of like the center by which that complete appreciation, understanding, recognition resides there, because it's very pure. It's like before, the heart doesn't really analyze and synthesize the way the brain does, right? The heart is just like the pure experience of it, just processing the pure experience of it. Okay, she also has this question about gender. Hot topic these days, gender. She feels as if maybe some of this, some of her sparkle, some of the sparkle that she had as a little girl was sort of connected somehow to the masculine side of her as opposed to the feminine side of her and so forth. I would say that the sparkle being the light of the divine coming through is not specifically, it's not specified for gender one way or the other. I would say it's not. That the little girl in you can sparkle just as brightly and just do as many wonderful things as the little boy value the male energy, female energy, both sparkle with the light of the divine, both do. But it could be that some of the drive or the intention, some of the more stronger feelings like that, like driving intention, could have been more of a energy that sometimes is seen more expressed in boys. But as we know, we all have the ability to express the entire range of qualities, aspects. And I was thinking how this tied in with one of the points from yesterday. Maybe we'll even, if I can navigate my way through here, let's see if I can. Yesterday we were looking at this chart. I'm goofing with the chart for just a second here. But I wanted to talk about this a little bit because we covered it yesterday, but it was such an interesting and important point that I kind of thought it might be worth looking at again. When we look at the causal level of the body here, we see this value, divine presence. And divine presence, I was talking about yesterday, represents all the different archetypes, right? So there, we one of the ways, one of the facets or ways that the divine shows up within us is through these different structures or forms that have specific access to specific laws of nature and specific abilities. So there is within us the warrior princess, which I see in you so big when I think of you, my darling. But also there is, the warrior is also kind of a masculine-ish sort of feel a little bit, but the point that was made yesterday was that all of these archetypal forms are always kept in perspective with the relationship to wholeness. Where is it? Relationship to the source of creation here. The source of creation is big, and that these forms, as long as we remember that the forms are isolated or facets of our full nature, of our full true nature, then you will be able to leverage and use all those facets in a way that really is really, really powerful. The minute that any one of us gets lost or caught or gripped in the idea of, well, I am that. I am that. Oh, I'm an attack helicopter, or I'm a blueberry, right? If we get so gripped by the idea of a particular archetype that we allow it to sort of take over the entire sense of self and thus lose the connection to wholeness, then the value of that archetype is also lost. We lose some of our ability or autonomy to leverage the resources and the laws of nature that are represented by that archetype. So anyway, I offer that. Not that I don't think you're doing that, because you're with me, and I mean, we've been doing this together for a long time, but I'm kind of, it was a point that I sort of wanted to make yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to make yesterday because I was still thinking of the most refined way to allow that point to come forward. But yes, we have within us all the archetypes, and they're important, and they're important to use them. As we use them, the nervous system adapts to that use, and it becomes more stable and adaptable. The nervous system becomes more capable of being the carrier or the vehicle for our awareness. And our awareness, you guys, is like the fundamental tool for all of it, for all the evolution, for all the energy healing, for the connection to the divine, for all of it. So we need the physical body. We need the physical body, and it's made the way it's made. And each person was granted this beautiful, amazing physical body by the creator, because in this lifetime, this was the form that best carries awareness for the sake of your highest evolution, for the sake of the most enriching relationship to the divine, and for your best healing and best health. So it's a lovely thing. The nervous system is a lovely thing. And the female and male nervous systems are a little different. And that's okay. What that means is that we filter the male and female tendencies a little differently, right? But it gives us a chance to explore and to enjoy them through the particular filter that we've been given. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You are so beautiful. Thank you for the question. Thank you for giving me a chance to revisit that point that I almost didn't bring out during this webinar, but I thought was useful in its own way. If it comes out in a refined way, it makes sense, right? Because the closer we get to the truth, then the more like fullness of those impulses of pure intelligence are in it. Is it possible while listening to you that one can transcend? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the values of participating in life, more coming at it from more of a passive participation. And honestly, being with you guys is so beautiful for me that I feel that my mind transcends constantly during these sessions. Every little break, every break between every word, every gap between every impulse of the heart, the silence of being is there. And it's really beautiful. And it's one of the reasons that I come back to be with you again and again. because I love you so much. And because being together, pooling, my father used to say, we'll put our heads together and make a slippery puddle. But he used to say funny things. But the point is that when we come together and we're entertaining energy healing, we're entertaining the ideas that surround the process of energy healing, which is transformation through consciousness. It gives rise to subtle experiences because we're putting our attention on the subtle anyway. And when you're passively listening, it's really easy. The body can become very, and in fact, I bet there's some people out there who just fall asleep, right? Yeah, there's some people who fall asleep. Oh, look, many hands raised. And what did I say about sleep? That sleep, when we sleep, we go into that gap. We go into that silent place, that source of creation place. The nervous system likes to be in that. It's very comfortable. And don't think if you're falling asleep that you're missing a word, because you're not. You're not. You're still getting everything, but you're just getting it from a place of a very, very, very settled mind, very quiet, settled mind. Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. Ojas? Ojas. What about Ojas? Yeah, Ojas is the light that sits in the gap. Oh, I have the gap down there on my chart, but Ojas is down in that gap too. You notice on the chart, you guys, how it gets more concentrated as it gets to the bottom of the chart, right? Well, we could make the chart so it gets concentrated in other areas as well, because there's actually a lot in it at each point. But Ojas is the light that sits in the gap between the unmanifest and the manifest, finest abstract level of the manifest. And it is the light of grace. It is the light of awareness. But when I put, Ojas, I see you're asking that about that in that energy healing. And maybe it was Ojas that was coming forward. It was Soma and Ojas. I think you're right. I won't say the name of the very brilliant person who suggested that, but I would say Soma and Ojas together, mixing together with that light medicine coming into the nervous system. Yes, 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 yes. And also when I think of Ojas, I think of the light of heaven. It reminds me because of the light of heaven, because it's so completely uplifting, right? It's just so filled with goodness. Soma variation, like a spray coating of the frictionless state of functioning of the unified field. Oh, beautiful, beautifully put. Yes, yes, yes. It smooths everything up. And doesn't Soma and Ojas do that? They kind of, it's like an oil massage or something. They kind of oil everything up and allow everything to move really, really efficiently. Over the past hour, looking at the screen, the snowy mountain background really compliments. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I said to my husband, these shapes are more dynamic, right? All these sort of triangular shapes that are in this mountain back here are moving. They kind of elicit a feeling of movement and transformation. So whereas like a seascape that's very flat kind of makes you feel settled, and a mountain, or let's see, this is from a friend, a dear art teacher from years ago, dear Jeffrey Baker, and he said that when you have the trees, you have the tree trunks going like this, it creates a feeling of stability. Have a tree trunk and a tree trunk and a tree trunk and a tree trunk like that, and you feel very stable. And they come along at different intervals, and so the stability is there, even though the negative spaces between them are a little different. But this kind of shape, he said, just kind of gets you moving. So, so can you be a good witch archetype, or is that by definition a misuse of resources? It is such an important question. Yesterday, you guys, not for you today, but yesterday I was being an imitation of a witch for everybody, just for fun, but staying anchored to wholeness. And so I was using that as an example of how that can be done for you, my dear, specifically, because I knew you were thinking that question. but, the laws of nature that are working within the context of that archetype have, by definition, over the course of time, I would say that archetypal form got a little bit corrupted. It got a little corrupted. So the reason for digging into it or leaning into it is to heal it. The reason for doing it is to heal it. Because what did the witches do? Like Our Lady, who was sparkling as a little child, but wasn't sure if maybe she was doing something wrong, may also, I look to me as if have a little memory of the past of being in a position like a witch or having some mastery over natural law, but not necessarily finishing that lifetime and looking back and thinking, I didn't use it quite right. And coming into this lifetime and still having that mastery over natural law, but thinking, I'm afraid I might not use it right. It's a very core wound that goes back multiple lifetimes. But we worked on that all today, all of it. And it was also for this. It was also for this, because there are archetypal forms whose nature is to lose sight of wholeness. And those archetypal forms require engagement and gentle reconnection to wholeness or source. That unity, that union energy to come in and reconnect them. And by doing so, I feel like a form that has more of dark energy in it ends up redefining itself in terms of the light. It redefines itself in terms of the light. And what was considering feeling like a witch becomes feeling more like an alchemist, like a wise teacher who still has the mastery over all the same laws of nature, but also has access to the home of all the laws of nature, and therefore leverages the laws of nature in a way that supports evolution. And anyway, something that becomes like a white witch or a bright witch becomes more like a fairy princess witch, or it takes on a different form. It kind of ends up redefining itself. And in so doing, we restructure and support the healing of the archetype for the whole collective, so that anybody else who comes into that archetype or decides to move with it finds their way to an uplifting experience. Can you please do healing for more alignment and union with the source of being so we can flow in grace itself? I did that. Thank you for asking. Thank you for the powerful healing nervous system. Coming back from the 10,000 course in India, I feel like going to war and having PTSD. Being with you in everyone's consciousness is a profound gift from the source. Much love. That course was a big turning. She's referencing a collecting of people meditating together in India over the holidays, early January and late December, early January. And a shift in world consciousness was required. And the establishment of permanent groups by the people of India, I feel, is an absolutely beautiful and important and essential contribution that the land of the Veda can make to this world. And for years and decades, it's sat on the shoulders of those few of us in the West to make that change. And it's really nice that's being picked up by India, and India is doing it. So God bless India at this point. Yeah, our world, we all know, for those of you who know what time it is, and I'm looking at my clock and I'm a little bit over my time, but but I mean the time of mankind. We know what time of mankind it is. This is a time of massive transformation and transition. And the work that we're doing, just like healing the archetypes within us, is one of the ways that we make powerful healing change within ourselves that then reflects to the collective field and supports anybody else who happens to come into union with those archetypes and decides to use them themselves, that they'll be able to use a more refined, more life supporting form or version of that archetype. It's for everyone. And it's the divine doing it. To quote my friend Nick, again, I quoted him yesterday, I quote him again. Actually, he goes by Bhushananda now. But anyway, to quote him, God godding with God. It's God godding with God. And we are the forms, we are the individuals who are the center of that. And what, no wonder people are fighting to get into the human condition, as difficult as it is. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being with me. Thank you for the love and gratitude. I'm looking at the, yeah, thank you, everyone. It's been absolutely beautiful. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. And we'll go even more deeply into the chart, and hopefully with lots and lots of healings to go with it, so that it ends up being satisfying on every level. Thank you, guys. I love you. And I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.